Hey everybody, how you doing? I've got the one and only Matt Windle in the building. It's a real pleasure, Matt, as ever.
Thank you very much.
So me and Matt were just having a little discussion about quite thorny issues, really. And how do you tackle thorny issues? How do you speak about them? What's useful? What isn't useful? There was an example that was just talking about how to reference people with disabilities. You know, we've seen the same with obviously people determining what sex they are. How do you talk nowadays without offending people is essentially what I suppose this little clip is about.
And also, how do you kind of get, you know, if you are offended by something, as long as it's not an actual attack, you know, like the N word or something that's rooted in history and prejudice and so on and so forth. That being offended by that is a completely different sort of offence than me having a disagreement to a view that you have on the current world topics and you getting offended that my opinion is different to your opinion. So how do you just get over the fact that so how do you become okay with the fact that people think differently to you, and that's okay, you know, even if you think you're the most liberal, you know, left, open-minded, caring person in the world, if you're then taking issue with the fact that people think something differently to you, you're not as liberal and left and open-minded as what you think you are, and you're probably a little bit closer, although your thought process is completely different to, you know, the Trumps and
different end of the spectrum
of the world. But, you know why they say love and hate is very similar.
There's an unwillingness still to take on board someone who may actually have a point, but maybe they've used the wrong sort of language to express that point, which is triggering some sort of hostility.
Coming from a completely different place to you, so their experiences is different, and what's the right way for the world to be conducted or managed for you isn't going to be the right way for somebody else, and so on and so forth. And how do you get round so that people can just go, okay, you know, you think something differently to me, and that's okay. I don't, you know, just to give you a really loose topic. I was speaking with a lady a few days ago, and she was half sort of saying that she didn't really agree with boxing, and that she had a bit of an issue with boxing. Or that's kind of how I interpreted.
For those who don't know, Matt is a pro boxer as well as the current Birmingham Poet Laureate.
Got a flat nose.
Yeah.
And she, or I was interpreting it that she possibly didn't like it, and she said to me afterwards, after I questioned her about it, she said, "Oh no, I haven't got an issue with boxing." She said, I must admit, I do find it a little bit, not scary, but uneasy at the aggression of men being aggressive and so on and so forth. So that does make me a little bit uneasy, and then she kind of tried to, you know, I think not wanting an argument or me to think bad or something. It was like, but I'm not, you know, attacking boxing or anything like that. And I said to her, attack away, if you want to. It makes no difference to me. You attacking boxing and saying boxing should be banned, which she wasn't saying, but if that's what you was going to say, that's not going to make me stop boxing. It's not going to make me beat you up. It's not going to make me do anything, because you're entitled to think that if you want to think that.
Yeah, sure.
It's not going to happen, and I don't fully agree with it. And I imagine being a lady, I do not know her background or anything at all to stress, but I imagine being a lady that's saying she's uncomfortable with men being aggressive. She's been in some situation somewhere down the line that has made her feel like that. But then I was trying to explain it's actually a productive way for men to be aggressive and to vent those outlets with two willing participants that are both agreed to be there. They've trained hard, they've eaten right. If men are going to be aggressive at all, and I say this now, men, there was a boxing show on Friday where a lad that I know was fighting for a Midland title. There was just 3 fights on the card because a couple of us pulled out with injury and stuff. the other 2 fights were women. Women fights. So I'm
Mm.
saying all this about men, aggression, men, boxing, men, and more and more women.
Women get angry too.
Yeah, but not just that. I just wanted liking to take up boxing.
Yeah, for sure.
And finding benefits in boxing, and with role models like Katie Taylor and Nicola Adams, and there's so many others. Chantal Cameron as an IBO world champion. There's more role models for boxing, and there's this big thing at the minute of, girls can do whatever men can do, and so on and so forth, and a big push with women's football and sport in general. So on that occasion, on that boxing show, the male boxer was the minority. There's more female boxers than double as many female boxers as there was male boxers. So it's not just a thing now where, and then again, we can't say, I don't like boxing, I'm uncomfortable with men being aggressive, but then I haven't got an issue with women boxing. We can't say that in this equality-driven world that everyone's so desperately trying to get to.
I think trying to stay focused on the principle is probably more important than, to some extent, just trying to keep an eye on the principle is a proactive way, I think, of addressing a lot of these situations.
It's understanding as well, isn't it? Because a lot of people that, it's strange for me to think of it like this, because my day-to-day life involves boxers and people from the boxing world. I think the majority,
whether they're male or
female,
because that's the thing. That the principle is they are an athlete.
Boxers.
They are
within
boxers.
the boxing world.
Sex doesn't really.
But I think your average person obviously doesn't deal with a boxer, never mind boxers, on daily basis. So they just see it on the telly. They see the beef between David Haye and Derek Chisora or whatever it is, and they see the newspaper headlines and whatever, and they just think boxers are thugs. Why would you want to get in the ring and hurt somebody else, and so on and so forth? And they make a judgment on it without really understanding why people do it, what it helps to prevent. I was having a similar conversation with a lady in the pub, and it was about this time last year, and we was it was in Moseley. We was at a charity night raising money for Grenfell, and she was saying to me, "But aren't you worried about what boxing is going to do for your health?" And I said, "But that's the thing, isn't it?" I said, "We sat here on a hot Sunday afternoon in a pub full of people. Pretty much everybody other than myself is getting on it. You're drinking about your 4th glass of wine, and yet you're talking to me about what my choices do for my health. I could say the same thing to all of you drinking alcohol in here, because I don't drink alcohol since I've boxed professionally. Yeah. So it's what's normal and what's
the
not.
Picking and the choosing.
And to have the blatant punch to the head obviously isn't normal, and it isn't normal for the majority of people, and there's an obvious threat of danger there. Everyone's putting poison into their body. It's just more normal. It's what you do at the end of a long week. It's what you do at the end of a long day. It's just what you do. It's part of the culture. Yeah. So people don't think about that being bad for them. They'll know it's bad for them. If you ask them, is drinking bad for you? They'll say yes, they know it is, but they don't think about it being bad for them when they're sat there with their 2nd bottle of wine in front of them saying, do you know your life decisions could really do something bad to your health? Do you know yours could too? You know what I mean? And there's a sign, there's the Ingle Gym in Sheffield, and it's one of the most famous boxing gyms in the country, and it's got on the wall in there, yes, boxing can be bad for your health. Drugs and alcohol is only bad for your health. So it's all about perception, and there's pros and cons to everything, and so on and so forth.
And coming to the culture thing again, I guess the more people are doing a certain action, the more it becomes normalised, the more it becomes accepted, even though we know it is bad. Which kind of brings us back to this climate of fear around language, when addressing certain things. So, I think what we're finding is there are a lot of people out there making, probably coming from the right place, of course, kind of berating people not to say this and not to say that around certain topics. I mean, this came up during the conversation that Matt was talking about during a recent online altercation, which is fine, which is cool, because I think it is healthy to have the conversation. I mean, this is the thing that prompted us to do this video. Who knows, this might help one or two people out there in terms of how their mindset is when it comes to tackling situations like this, or before they reach out to comment and make some sort of high moral comment which really isn't that helpful. So rather than focusing on what not to say in certain situations with regard, I don't know, maybe around someone's disability or sexuality,
mental health issue, anything really.
Yeah.
I think rather than focusing and telling people what not to say, because all that's doing then is putting those phrases and those words into people's head. Don't press the big red button.
Yeah.
People want to go and press it. Don't touch the wet paint.
Yeah.
People, but is it wet?
That's
it? They just want to check. Don't tell people.
Even if someone farts, man. I mean, let's bring it down to the basic levels. Even if someone farts, man. Even if you tell people, someone says they've let off, and people hang around to smell it before they actually.
So Kurly could go to me, I've just farted, and I go, "You're a tramp, man." But I'll stay here until I smell it,
catcher.
And I'll go, "Nah, you know what, Kurly?
Yeah. People
You're
have
out
to
of
wait.
order, man. You're out of order."
I mean, I remember that at school a hell of a lot, man. People would hang around to wait. I mean, I'm guilty of it as well, man. Hang around to wait, because everyone else is kind of hanging around to wait as well. Before they're like, oh yeah, he has actually done something, so let's have make some fun and noise about that. But I think much more useful in today's climate, it's definitely is probably being a bit more helpful as to what to say, and obviously asking the people who are directly affected by references regarding anything, whether it's a disability or mental health thing, is probably an interesting starting point. But just to come from a place of probably an unlived experience of that person's life, to then say to the whole of society what is acceptable to say or not to say in reference to that person's situation, I don't think is all too helpful.
Can I say as well, I think when people share, and I'm guilty of this myself, when people share things online about certain issues and topics and people and so on and so forth, as you've already said, it comes from a good place. They mean well by it. They're trying to maybe raise awareness for it and get people talking by it possibly, and so on and so forth. So they're not doing it for negative reasons. But I think sometimes we overthink how someone in that situation would handle what someone says, if that makes sense. So I think, to use the mental health one for an example, I could share something about what not to say to someone that says I've got a mental health issue, because I could just assume that people with mental health issues are going to be really touchy by what someone's response might be. And I think you probably find more times than not, I've certainly got this when I've worked with people with disabilities and certainly people in wheelchairs and stuff, and they just want to be treated the same as everybody else. If you're going to take the mick out of, if you're a friendship group and you're going to take the mick out of the one for their thing, they want that inclusion as well. They want to feel part of the team and whatever it is. And I think a lot of the times, the people that are going through whatever the issue is that you're sharing and trying to raise awareness about, a lot of times they're not actually as touchy on it as what you think they're going to be. So we're doing it to kind of try and defend them or, stop something from happening before it does or whatever. But very often, I don't think we need to do that, because again, it becomes a little bit robotic, and things then don't flow organically, because it's saying here about what not to say to mental health people or whatever. But if more times than not, someone's going to come out and say, I've got depression, I've got anxiety, so on and so forth, they're going to say it to someone close to them, You know, it's rare the first person that they tell is going to be a stranger that they've got no idea how they're going to respond to that. They're going to tell it to someone that they're close with, and you'd imagine, more times than not, that person that they're close with is going to have some knowledge on how to handle the situation for that person that they know well. And then the more you speak about it, the more understanding people are, the more kind of familiar and relaxed with it you become. But I think you also have to understand that everyone isn't going to always understand, everyone isn't always going to agree. People are going to, some people are going to have a need to toughen up approach. And you know what, that might not be the right approach per se, but it might be the right approach for someone. You know, and if it's a friend of yours, if that's a tough love ways is a better way for that person that you know really well, as opposed to that person I've never even heard of, but I've shared something on Facebook, so this is how you should handle that situation. Now, so I think we need to stop assuming of how people going through these things, like say sexual orientation, gender, or whatever it is, whether it's just being gay or whatever it is. I think we need to stop assuming how people in that boat, because a lot of times when you see the people sharing these things on Facebook, they're not necessarily people that have these things. They might be friends that come from these circle groups, or they work with charities, or this on and so forth, but they don't necessarily have it themselves. So, and we're just trying to assume how we think someone is going to handle a particular comment. We don't know.
Like you say, they'll probably coming from a good place.
Yeah, I don't think
9 times out of 10.
To be
but if it shuts down the conversation, if it shuts down the debate, if it reduces the vocabulary to a point where we can't even talk about the subject for fear of offending someone who might not be offended,
getting unfriended and getting blocked, and do you know what I mean? And you don't think the same as me, so I'm just going to take you off my Facebook.
So we need to be mindful of that cognitive bias that sometimes we have, that if something goes counter to our story that we want to hear, we block it out. And I think that's where we start becoming polarised.
Well, if you only ever hear what you want to hear,
you're never going to learn,
and you're never going to be able to handle the real life scenarios where someone has got a difference of opinion to you, and they are saying something that you don't like, and you can't just block them out, and you can't just unfriend them. Okay, you can always possibly walk away, but let's just assume in this scenario, for whatever reason, you can't as well, and you're not going to be able to handle that, which then, full circle, is adding to the anxiety and not wanting to go to certain things because you don't know what people are going to say. And I think as long as people aren't being, damn right abusive and offensive, and I'm talking about skin colour or religions, and do you know what I mean? But even then, you try and have conversations with these people. Berating them isn't going to make them change their mind. It's going to make them dig their heels in. Trying to have a conversation with them about it. I saw a video someone shared, may have even been you, I don't know, on Facebook the other day, and a gentleman was confronting this lady that was protesting Islam and Muslims and Sharia law, and saying that it says in there that they can have sex with children and so on and so forth. And the guy on there was like, well, what if I tell you that's not what it is and how it is? And he goes, but I've been told that it is. Yeah, but I'm telling you now that that's how it isn't. She said, well, when I'm told something, I believe it until someone proves it to not be true. And in the end, she, with what he was saying, she ended up just like
having a moment.
Just didn't know what to reflect. Said nothing to say. If you'd have just gone, you're narrow-minded, you're a scumbag, it's never going to get anywhere. Whereas now, she may actually go back and put a bit of research into it, and then find that what she thought was fact isn't fact.
Just because you hear something 17 times of 17 different people doesn't corroborate that as evidence necessarily. Do you know what I mean?
Especially in the world where we've got internet. I mean, it's not hard nowadays to just do your own bit of research into it. So to say something like I believe, if I'm told something, I believe it until it's proven to not be true. I mean, it is ridiculous. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know about you, Matt, but my approach to posting stuff now has become a lot more considered than it used to be. some time ago. Like, you know, I'll do a little bit of research now, try and only post things that I know a little bit about. At least I can kind of like counter some points if any counterpoints come towards my way. But I am open completely to learning and the principle of, you know, becoming a better human being and evolving, and that can only come through listening to other perspectives, surely. Yeah, I tend to share stuff now with the mindset that there's a good chance that someone's going to respond to this with a different view. And I'm not going to get offended by that. I would probably advise, if you are going to get offended to other people having opinions, then I would probably not. I would consider not sharing it, because why make your life more complicated than it needs to
Stressful.
be? Yeah, man. You know, and especially then you won't be able to talk about it because there's so much. You know, language has been reduced so much, and you're just suffering more, man. So
I would say my Instagram and my Twitter is more considered than my Facebook because they're open profiles. The children at schools that I visit and so on and so forth can then just click the follow button and so on and so forth. So I try and make sure that I haven't got any bad language and so on, and my Twitter links up to my website, and do you know what I mean, that sort of stuff. So I try and make sure, I try and be a little bit more
filtered.
Yeah, and kind of considered and aware that that's open, whereas Facebook is a bit more private with your 2,500 friends that you've got on there.
Followers.
It's a little bit more of a
bit more social,
of a private setting. And there are people, if there are some people watching this that are on my Facebook, they know that I share things that rub people up the wrong way, and that people don't like, and I kind of do it at times, not on purpose, but knowing it's going to rub some people up the wrong way. But that doesn't mean we can't have a discussion about it.
100%.
Like in January when I shared the post about the transgender, I think girls are male to female, and the teacher refused to.
Or was it an accident? They said.
No, at first it was an accident,
right?
And then they kind of said, no, born male, but I want my pronouns to be female and she and hers and that sort of stuff.
And he
refused. He didn't want to. And my kind of devil's advocate in it was, if I was asked, especially in a professional scenario, but pretty much any, if I was asked by a male to female to refer to them as a she and her and stuff, I would. But if then somebody else says, well, you know what, that's not true, biologically or whatever, I'm not comfortable referring to her as a her or referring to him as a her, I'm not going to take massive issue with that person either and say, nah, you're out of order. Whereas a lot of the people that ended up commenting on it and getting offended by it was just, no, you've got to respect what they want. If they want you to call them a her, even if it's not, even if she was born with a penis, if they want you to call you a her, you have to call her a her. And the truth of the matter is, you don't have to. If you don't want, and that's me trying to be open-minded, saying I would. But if somebody doesn't, I can't say that they're wrong, because technically, if we're talking really who's wrong, or wrong's the wrong word, but who's certainly not wrong. They're not wrong with what they're saying. He's born with a penis.
Well, I mean, if anyone has an opinion on that, feel free to comment, man. I mean, like we're not the ambassadors of what is the ultimate absolute
I'm not the
truth.
ambassador of anything.
Apart from poetry of Birmingham.
No.
Yeah. How many months you got left now of
Laureate? 2 months.
2 months.
2 months.
So what's your strategy now going forward these next 2 months, man? You're gonna
so
make an impact.
August, it's a madam, because August can be a fairly quiet month because the majority of my work and my poetry work is within schools. So the summer holidays usually go a bit quiet, so I can focus more on training or enjoy the summer and so on and so forth. But it's turning out to be quite a hectic one still. So I've got a few workshops going on at libraries and involved with summer reading challenge and that kind of stuff. So I've got a few things going on with workshops, but then it's a lot more behind the scenes work. So then
Planting
rather than when we get to September, it's like, okay, now I need to start. I'm laying groundwork with yourself all over the summer. So as soon as September comes, we just hit the ground running. We haven't got to kind of get ourselves up out of our slump and slowly start walking towards National Poetry Day in October. We've got a lot of work, you know, you and I, we've got a lot of work on. We're working with over 3,000 children in September alone. You know, so we want to make sure that we're hitting the ground running. We've got a lot to offer teachers from kind of fun, creative writing poetry workshops that don't have to be about a particular theme and can just be fun, to year 9, year 10 and 11 AQA, GCSE poetry workshops that are a lot more sort of on it and specific and tailor-made for a certain class or school or you know, theme like parent conflict and love and relationships and so on and so forth. So it's just planting those seeds, doing a lot of groundwork. I've got a corporate business that I'm writing a poem for as well, so financially that keeps you ticking over the summer.
Are you allowed to say at this point which corporation that is?
They're a new food company, so you know what, I'm not going to say anything yet because I'm going to visit.
Haven't poisoned anyone yet.
We're not just. I'm going to visit their offices, and they're not letting the people know who I am, so that when we come to unveil the poem on their launch event, it's a complete surprise for all of them. And tell them that I'm a journalist. I feel like Clark Kent or something.
Yeah,
journalist by now. So I won't say. I mean, I think the likelihood of them bumping into this video is very low,
but you never know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything. But they're two. They're
all 12
merging,
people
so.
watching it. Yeah, 12.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you never know. You never know. But yeah, so keeping busy over the.
And not only with the obviously the poetry side, but also the boxing as well.
That's
training.
keeping me hectic. So I'm training now at Eastside Gym, which is the best gym in Birmingham, if not the Midlands. They've won titles from kind of Midland title, which is sort of the first rung on the ladder, right the way up to European titles. The only title that they haven't won yet is a world title. My new trainer, Spencer McCracken, comes from a very big and well-known, respected boxing family. He boxed for a British and world title as a boxer. He's cornered in a world title fight with Cal Yafai over in America. I've got fantastic experience, so I'm back training with them all over the summer. It's already getting like 6 days a week, twice a day, where I can fit twice a day in with work and so on and so forth. So my legs today are just in absolute pieces after our reservoir run yesterday, which is my first one. They kind of broke me in gently, and I still feel like I need a blue badge to park a bit closer to the building today because my legs are in bits.
Literally. No way. Wow, man. So it sounds like you're busy bee then, man, over the next few months in the short run.
It's right the way up till Christmas. Yeah, man. Really, right the way up till December. Still some availability for the first 2 December weeks for schools and stuff. Then obviously they break up. I'm hoping that I'll have a fight by the end of September, maybe end of October if that's the date it has to be. But end of September would be ideal. That'll probably be my last fight of the year because of how busy I am then with poetry work and working away and not being in Birmingham too much. And then.
And how old are you now, man?
27.
27.
So I'll be 28 when I hand over the laureateship.
So man, it's quite a bit. It's been an epic journey, man, and you're still very, very young, man. You know, I mean, has that ever gone against you, your age, like in terms of where you are?
I think when I was young poet laureate, and I was more your typical teenage dresser. You know, I like to dress nice now. I wear shoes and blazers and shirts and pocket watch, you know, moustache combs. You know, I like to dress nice now if I can. But back when I was young laureate, I was just your typical teenager. You know, pair of jeans, a hoodie, and that was it. So I'd go to walk into an event where there'd be the Lord Mayor and Lord Andrew Adonis or the Princess of Jordan I've performed for as well, and so on and so forth. And people would be, you know, be an open door. and you kind of go to walk through, and the guy at the door would be a bit,
How about me?
where do you think you're going? Type thing. It's only when you say I'm, young poet laureate, my name should be on the list or whatever.
So you'd rock up looking a bit rough and ready, sort of thing.
Yeah, just not trying to just being me again. Just being, because at the time we're talking about days when I was 17, 18, 19 years of age. So I was dressing like and talking like a 17, 18, 19-year-old person talks. And then, like I say, you grow and you change and you have your 7-year cycles and so on and so forth, and you start to become more of a man. Don't get offended by that term, anyone. A man, whatever a man should be.
Hey man, I'm big into, trying to look at masculinity in all its forms, man. Toxic, not toxic. One of the books I'm reading at the moment, really good book, a very good read. I recommend people do check it out, man. It's Tantric Sex for Men. Whether this is appropriate for this audience, I don't know who's watching this, but I think masculinity is something that we should be talking more about anyway. It's just fascinating, really, just how masculinity in itself can. Because I think, come back to the boxing with women. When I think about women, most of the women that I know are fucking hard as fuck, man.
Yeah, of course.
Like I'm talking.
Birth.
Yeah, I'm on about like hard, not in the sense of necessarily smashing people up, or just like to deal with life, man. Like, I'm typical examples, obviously, with single mothers and whatnot, but the single fathers out there doing a great job too. But I think to be tough, I think as a man, you have to be able to accept being able to manage your emotions and talk, and part of that is talking about them.
Yeah.
And again, language is imperative in terms of encouraging people to open up and discuss things.
It's why
without the fear of being slammed.
Without trying to kind of make it sound like everything about me, but I only know my real experiences. But it's why I've always been open. About me getting kicked out of school, attending approved schools, and I've had newspapers. One headline in a piece about me in a newspaper was something like teenage tearaway transforms life and becomes young poet laureate.
Right.
And my parents were fuming because to read that teenage tearaway, I mean, I got kicked out of school, but it even had in there, was kicked out of multiple schools.
Wow, okay.
And I was kicked out of one school, do you know what I mean? One school that I didn't want to be at anyway.
Yeah.
Tried to get managed moves away from, and they only ever said to me, everywhere's full, if you don't do this, you'll get kicked out. If you don't do that, if you don't change your behaviour, you'll get kicked out. And we saw Lem Sissay the other week talking about that, not necessarily self-fulfilling prophecy, but people, when you're constantly saying something all the time, again, kind of going back to the what not to say thing, when people constantly saying something, they're reinforcing it, and it's more likely it can happen. Yeah. And at the time, me and my mum thought that the school was trying to be helpful, but we soon realised that it wasn't. They was trying to threaten me, but I didn't want to be at the school anyway. So threatening me with exclusion wasn't a threat. I didn't want to be there. Kicked me out, and then when they did, my parents, bless them, thought that is the end of the world. For me, it was just
a huge weight
lifted off my shoulder. I said to my mum, don't worry, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. Certainly didn't know I was going to end up becoming a poet. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but trust me, I'm going to make something of myself now. Because I wasn't lazy. I didn't want 5-day weekends where I'm on my PlayStation all day and so on and so forth. It wasn't that I was afraid of hard work. It's just that conformity, that 8:30 till 3:30, 1 hour here, 1 hour there, 1 hour there. It just, school and the education system just wasn't for me. It didn't suit me as a person, my style of learning. A bit of chip on my shoulder, a bit of a gob. Just because you was the teacher, I wouldn't just shut up. If I thought that you was wrong about something, I'd challenge it. And obviously teachers don't like being challenged. And then ultimately it comes full circle now where I work with teachers. I'm close friends with teachers that get me into their schools regularly. And I see it from the other side of the fence, they haven't got time to be challenged because I've got to hit targets and I've got to push on. I've got to get this lesson done by the end of this hour because the next lesson I've got to start the new topic.
Yeah.
It's
like that production line.
crazy stressful for a teacher. But also, a lot of the schools and teachers that I work with, I do think if my teachers would have been like you, it would have been a bit of a different story. So again, for me, where you'd have really been able to say I was a bad lad, is if I was naughty in every lesson. No matter what the subject, who the teacher, I'd be naughty. Whereas 1 year, I could get into loads of trouble in science, and then the next year, with a different science teacher, science wasn't an issue for me, for example. And surely that's to do with, it's not the teacher's fault, but it's to do with the teacher I had and the handling of situations and so on and so forth as well. But that's why I've always tried to be open with my story, even though people will misreport on it or judge me by the fact that you got excluded from school. Or I mean, I used to come home from school, I'm not saying I had depression, but I was depressed when I was at school. Every Sunday I felt sick because I knew I had to go to school on Monday. I'd come home from school and cry because of how much I disliked it, and I wasn't bullied. People tried, and we ended up fighting because you hit me, you're gonna get hit back. So I certainly wasn't a victim. I wasn't bullied. I was one of the more popular kids. I would also say not nice things to other kids. When older kids in older years would say not nice things to me, it was kind of a cycle. So I certainly wasn't perfect. There's a multitude of things. So I was captain of the football team. I was my year counsellor and so on. So I certainly wasn't a victim or picked on or anything. But I just hated being there. I hated it, and I think a lot of bad behaviour stems from a root of unhappiness, and it's just normally the unhappiness comes from the home life.
In your case, that wasn't.
My parents, I couldn't ask for anything more. So when they removed me from school and I was kicked out of school, my unhappiness had gone. It was gone. Whereas you exclude most people from schools, and their unhappiness still remains because it's their home life or foster care or whatever it is that they've got going on. And now all the school has done is backed up their belief that no one cares about me. And now the school's kicked them out, and now there's one less person that cares about me, and then you get into the whole street gang thing, and there they find like a brotherhood and a family and togetherness and people that they've got common with and accepting and so on and so forth. And it's that scary statistic that you told me about a few months ago, and you can check this out because lazily I haven't, but something like 65 or 70% of inmates attended a PRU.
Been kicked out of school.
Got kicked out of school, went to PRUs, and 65-70% of them are in prison, attended the same sort of education.
Might be higher. I think it might
that
be
I went through. So you've got, if you go to a PRU like I did, you've got a 70+% chance of ending up in prison, and that's horrifying. And that's something that maybe I think a lot of teachers don't take into account when they're excluding children. What they're thinking about is the Ofsted reports and what percentages are going to be on the banners and so on. The
marketing,
of the business.
That's right, the business.
The marketing of the business, which is
having an Ofsted seal of approval. That's a discussion for another time.
That's a different. So if there are any teachers that can see this, they can drop us some bars,
For sure. But this has kind of ran on a bit longer than we probably both expected. But is there anything you want to say just to sum up, Matt, in terms of in terms of talking about, I suppose, like language and opening up debate, even with the best will in the world, trying to maybe say something from a place of good, just be mindful of, I suppose, how, we're not shutting down conversation rather than leaving the platform open for people to express themselves, and we can correct ourselves on that journey forward towards that higher principle of finding truth, I suppose. But
I think just a little mantra that I just this second kind of came up with. I think it's always better to educate than berate. So if someone thinks something differently to you, rather than slamming them or unfriending them or you know, criticising them, because everyone can have stats and statistics as to why their thing is the right one. But yeah, just try and educate and just be open-minded to the fact that that person may not think how you do now, which, you know, is okay. But if you have a discussion with them, if you talk to them about it, so on and so forth, they may eventually, their way of thinking may change. If you just slate them and unfriend them and just be filled within your bubble, they're only ever going to stay with the same thought process that they currently have.
For sure. And missed opportunity there.
Don't berate, educate.
For sure.